Okay, welcome back, everybody. We've just heard the Automating for the Future of Logistics presented by CEVA Logistics. We now move into another panel discussion on opportunities for automation in warehousing distribution centers. So this is more a practical application that we are going to be seeing on a technology we have been presented with by Alan and Darren. So leading this panel discussion is Bob Gill, who's the General Manager for Southeast Asia ARC Advisory Group. And he will introduce you to his panel. But please, if I can remind everybody, do ask questions. The panel will be very pleased to respond and engage in your ideas and views. Bob, I'll leave it to you in your hands. Take it away. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Joe, for the introduction. And as Joe mentioned, this panel is called Opportunities for Automation in Warehousing and Distribution Centers. So the idea of this, what we're trying to do is really discuss the use of technology to automate the operations of warehouse facilities and distribution centers. I think in particular, focusing on technology trends, application areas, and the benefits that customers are realizing or can realize from automation deployments. So I'm really happy that to explore this topic, we have 4 esteemed panelists to join us today, and let me tell you who they are in alphabetical order by first name. So Alan Mackey. So you may have just seen Alan Mackey give a presentation just now. So Alan is the Managing Director, Solution Design and Implementation at CEVA Logistics. Then we have Jonathan Kwok. Jonathan is General Manager at Honeywell Logistics Solutions. Kevin D'Souza. Kevin is Head of Logistics at Dairy Farm International Retail Group. And Sean Lim is Country Manager at SSI Schaefer. So these are our 4 panel members today. So let's make a start. And if I could perhaps take a step back for a moment and put out this question about, really what, if anything at all, do you perceive has changed in overall warehouse DC demand investment since COVID-19? Now that could be, more facilities. It could be the size of facilities. It could be aspects like cold chain, and we had a presentation yesterday on cold chain warehousing. So really, what do you think is changing in terms of the overall warehouse DC demand and investment scenario? So if I could start with you, Alan, please.
Sure. So I think the impact of COVID, on the volume and shifting the orders, to more small orders and e-com is very clear. So we saw that when COVID hit, a lot of orders, the ordering pattern has moved from people, rather than going to the retail and buy from the brick and mortar type of shops, they go online and just buy e-com. So we have seen the ordering pattern has moved into more toward the e-com. The orders are becoming smaller, but the number of orders has become much larger. So what does this mean? That this has provided a lot of challenges for especially for the third-party logistics companies to cope with those volumes. So in order to, we need to understand what are the key impacts of COVID into the, I'm talking about like a warehousing and logistics type of industry, which I'm gonna categorize it in a couple of points. So this, the impact COVID at us, the impact of COVID was like keeping more inventory on hand, for example, reshoring and nearshoring the manufacturing. We need to provide more scalable processes and picking strategies within our warehouse. We wanted to have more work in progress in the inventory. That actually led us to more work in progress inventory in the warehouse and in the manufacturing. It led into smaller decentralized warehouse locations. It accelerated the growth of e-com. It embraced omni-channel distribution and increased the warehouse. We need to look for the ways for increasing the warehouse capacity, and and that means using some sort of automation. So if you consider all those aspects in order to make sure that you cope with those, to be able to survive for the environment that has been created and imposed to us by COVID, that's where the investment need to come to more toward more agile. Create more sophisticated, scalable, so you can cope with the peaks and troughs and meet the customer demand. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that you have the right time, the right product at the right time, at the right place to the right person, or the right customer.
Mm. All right, thank you, Alan. And yes, actually, for all our panelists, do feel free to tell us more about yourself or your companies as we go into the discussion. So, Jonathan Kwok, Honeywell Logistics Solutions, your take on this?
Yes. Sorry, I just with the same question or just
Really, what has changed, if anything, in the whole warehouse DC scenario across the region?
for because of COVID-19, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, which was kind of the anchor to this question. Yes.
Well, I think I first of all I need to agree with Alan about the what the COVID-19 was causing the demand or the changes in the warehouse. I mean, distribution in general in the market. We see that, of course, more online shopping for sure. Then you have less opportunity to go to the shopping mall to do it. Even less opportunity to go to the supermarket. So that would change one thing. So I think um, for the overall warehouse DC that you need to think versus that. In the past, we talk about online, and then in a lot of countries or different regions, may not be online is the big thing, but with the COVID and the warning to the people that every now and then something may happen like that, so people need to get ready with that. So number one for the online characteristic for delivery, and the second thing we see that because of COVID-19 stopping a lot of or reduce the number of opportunities for you to go to dine out in restaurants. So actually, in at least in China, I back to China for more than half a year. I can see that the fresh delivery is going like crazy. I would presume that it was similar in ASEAN as well. So that part is pretty difficult to handle. First of all, in the warehouse, we all know that it's not easy for the fresh, and people would like to cook at home, right? Because they cannot go out of time too often. So that part, and also the delivery to keeping the thing fresh. So all those things would be, I think, to get to the question, the changes because of COVID-19. I think that's the key.
Okay, and Kevin, if I can come to you now.
Sure, thanks, Bob. I think echo what Alan said earlier. So basically, the accelerated growth of e-commerce. Yeah, if you look at as a DC operator, we definitely will have to do. We used to pick in cases, and now you have to do maybe split case picking kind of methodology, where you do picks by cases and also picks by eaches, right? So I think one of the key areas in distribution, if you look at it, I think it's more and more into omni-channel kind of distribution. So basically, you shift your picking pattern, for retail supermarkets or even your retail stores. The way you pick and the way you pack is going to be different for end customers. So, if you look at the way the products are being pushed to the end customer, basically it's either shipped to home or, sometimes you ship to store. And you have those that they come to your parking car parks to do a mess, pick up, that kind of thing. So if you look at the distribution itself, is going to be more micro distribution from the stores if you have a physical store. Other than that, it's going to be very much you are using a lot of third-party logistics delivery providers. So you look at customer base, more and more people are going online to shop. The demand is growing, and at the end of the day, the customer demands that, I get my products fast. They are not going to wait 2 to 3 days just to get the products, especially if you're talking about, perishables or fresh products. I mean, if you're shipping it from overseas, then it's a different story. But even that also, you have different, I would say, multiple or third-party logistics in the world where they give you like, okay, ship within 24 hours or so these are the things that customers at their end they are looking at, how fast can I get the product. So omni-channel distribution is something that is going to grow just exponentially the next few months or even weeks, especially Christmas coming.
So it sounds like some of these trends were already apparent before COVID-19, but perhaps there's been amplification of this since then. Right. Okay. Sean from SSI Schaefer.
I guess for my side, let me share a little bit about Singapore because I'm responsible for Singapore. I guess since the beginning of COVID in 2020, lots of people are being affected. Business are not that good, but coming to the second, when it moves to the second half towards the end of 2020, we start to see a growth and a demand for warehousing and DCs, even for in general, all industrial buildings and DC start to pick up in demand as well. Accelerated by what the three panelists has mentioned, e-commerce. I think that's a major driving factor. There are others that contributes to the increase in demand as well, such as those COVID resistance industries, the high-tech industry, electronics industries. Healthcare has contributed a lot to it. But I guess the major factor that contributes towards the increase in demand in the end of 2020 and moving and follow through in 2021, the e-commerce, especially on the grocery e-commerce. I think Kevin just mentioned it as well. The shift in buying patterns from brick and mortar shops to e-commerce has changed over the last 2 years and accelerated over the last 2 years tremendously. So the business has moved from the shops to the warehouse right now.
Right.
It's where the demand of the investment on DC start to surge as well, and coupled by the shortage of labor, restriction of cross deploying of your labor, it make it very, very difficult to optimize the operations within the DC, and thus, all this drive a requirement for investment on automation in the DC as well.
All right, thank you, Sean. And if I could stick with you, Sean, just as we go into the next discussion point. So, from what you're saying, this trend sounds very good for your business. But in terms of what the customers are looking for, are they really looking for automated facilities? And if so, what is the extent of the automation they're looking for from suppliers like yourselves as they're developing these new facilities?
Like I said, most DC are looking into improving their facilities, whether it's automation or mechanization. I would say that it is not a question of whether a DC right now should automate, but it's a question of how to automate right now. Different DCs would have in their different stages. It is important to look at their own stages, at what stage they are, and their business processes. Smaller DCs may be looking into, may possibly be looking into a single system solution, while a bigger DC should be looking into a combination of solutions to complement the range of products that they have. In terms of possibility to automate, it is very important to understand that one should not under-automate, but one should not over-automate as well.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so Kevin, you're actually running a facility right now. So for you, I mean, to what extent is automation a prerequisite, a must-have to deliver the efficient operations that you're required to do as part of your portfolio?
Okay, so basically, if you look at the order volume or the volume itself, basically this whole year and the last year has been there's a lot of ups and downs. Yeah, so if you have volume fluctuations, and it's not like something that you can forecast or you can predict. It is a sudden, So one of the things that we or nearly every other DC in Singapore is facing is a shortage in manpower. So it also questions that whether do we want to automate and how much do we want to automate and what can we automate, But if you have a DC which has already been established, and you want to bring in automation, so that is one of the things that we need to look at the scalability level. how much can we at what juncture do we say that okay, enough is enough, let's go and automate. And nowadays, if you look at the ordering pattern, you rather want you may want a smaller footprint with a better utilization. Basically a utilization of the space is one of the things that the key factors that you look at. And if you have multiple systems, and how do you integrate those systems? So as a DC operator, we do look at different things, different factors, different variations of scenarios, and how can we pinpoint where and how we're going to do that? Because at the end of the day, all this points back to one question: how much capital is there for you to invest?
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Jonathan Kwok from Honeywell Logistics Solutions.
Yeah, well, I think the question is like, if like automation is a prerequisite for efficient, right? I think the key need to go back to to why we need automation. There's a lot of people I see. I'm sorry for that, but I'm just going very direct on what I see on the market. People like going for automation because they feel, ooh, looks cool, right? And at the end, they came back, well, it doesn't solve my problem. And then people start, there's an argument between the vendor and the customer. So that is very bad. Me also as a vendor, okay, we do software more than this automation, but we did involve in that as well. I always need to look at that. I tell my guys, need to not for selling, but you need to make sure they solve the problem. So to answer the question, look at that. The business requirement, right? Sometimes automation is solve the storage problem, is solve the transportation problem within the warehouse, is solve the picking problems and sorting problems. You look at that, what problem you need to solve. So it's really about the business requirement of the storage versus the available spaces. Okay, then what do you need? And also the order volumes or order profile, order accuracy requirement versus the available spaces and then available labor. Okay, even though you can hire 200 people, you may not be able to fit 200 people in there to do the work. Then you need automations, yeah? And also the time allowed that for you to do. People say, okay, my labor is cheap right now. I can put 100 people in there, 200 people. But then the time allowed, the accuracy and wanted, you may not be able to achieve. Then you need to go to automation. So I think it's a big question there. Whether it's a prerequisite or not, it's really look at the business requirement that you're looking for and the time allowed, the accuracy allowed.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. And Alan from SIVA.
Yeah, I think the other panelists, they actually summarized it pretty well. What is very important in here is, do we need to automate or not? And in terms of and there are several factors for that, right? So I think one of the main drivers is going to be the volume and the SLAs. The business case and the justification, the saving you get, which is very much related to the type of the country, the environment and the economy of that country as well. But what the other key things that we need to understand whether we automate or not is the type of the industry that we work on. Because I think Sean just covered it pretty well. So automation, with all the good things about automation, but there is a tipping point. So the more automate, the less flexible you will be. So that point needs to be really considered, right? So shall we automate for all type of sectors? Maybe not. Maybe for auto spare part, for example, the demand is pretty flat. We know there's not that much of a fluctuation. Shall we have a hybrid of manual and automation? Maybe. But for something like FMCG, for e-com, we know that we have a lot of peaks and troughs. For example, groceries, I would say even in a low-cost countries, for example, it all comes back to the SLAs and the level of fulfillment and meeting the demand of the customer. So I would say for those type of industry, automation is a starting point, to be honest, right? But maybe for the other countries, for like heavy and bulky and those type of things, more thought needs to be done, and maybe a hybrid model can work out.
Okay, thank you. Because Sean used this phrase just now, which was be careful not to over automate. Is that something that you've been conscious about? I mean, I know you showed some videos in your presentation. Is that something you've been conscious to do in your own projects?
Yeah, well, we, like any other company, when we're going to invest on something, we make sure that the business case is there, right? So, and we also consider for the time of peaks and troughs, just to make sure that we have the flexibility that in case the volume goes above a certain level, we'll still be able to operate that. So, yeah, I would say in our company also we consider, so we don't over automate. So, for example, we have the picking, but maybe the packing would be a bit manual. You don't need to have like a fully automated from the beginning to the end. I would say, especially for 3PL, when we're operating with multi-customers, you just need to have that flexibility in order to operate, in order to provide service to different levels of customer, from the very high volume to the mid volume to a low level of volume.
Okay, so there may be some warehouse DC operators out there, and they're thinking about, well, their processes, and they're thinking about the technologies that are out there for potentially automating these processes. But could you advise perhaps on some of the newer opportunities for applying technologies to processes which are still very largely manual? Are there some technologies out there that people can think about and start applying to those processes? Perhaps Jonathan, you wanted to take a look at this? Jonathan, I think you're muted, Jonathan. I think you're muted, Jonathan.
Hey, so
Okay.
Bob. So sorry, I just now was breaking for my network. Can you repeat again?
Yeah, no, I was thinking, there would be there may be quite a number of operators out there, and thinking about their processes, thinking about where they can apply technologies to processes which are still perhaps largely manual. Can you perhaps advise on some suitable technologies that can be deployed in those situations that maybe they're not so familiar with?
Yeah, you talk about the deployment to replace the manual operation. I just
Yeah, that's are there potential application areas still in terms of technologies that maybe people are not so aware of?
well, I think there's all different type of technology out there. The key thing is, I always back to what I just mentioned, is what kind of problem we want to solve in there. Automation is not for automation; it's for solving problems, right? So you talk about what kind of technology up there. Like if you want to solve the problem of moving the stuff in the warehouse, it could be like AGV, or if you want something to go around, it could be AMR. It could be like for flexibility. It could be there's some conveyor that nowadays can be modularized. A pop a bit is pretty modular as well. That can be a very flexible as well to deploy. I don't know, like I'm answering the question exactly or not, but since I don't really get the questions, Bob, in there.
Okay, all right, okay. Sean, your thoughts on this in terms of? I mean, I'm sure you're asked this question all the time about in terms of can you help me automate this? Is this appropriate to do, or what's your thoughts on some of the newer application areas for automation?
I guess the processes largely stays the same. The opportunity to automate largely still stays the same. The processes that are possible for automations starts from the inbound unloading process, to receiving, to put away, to picking, sorting, order consolidation, packing, and outbound sortation, and all the way to loading into the containers. All these processes do have solutions available to automate. But perhaps I guess when we start talking about warehouse automation, a lot of people will start to think about the area of storage. In the past, when we talk about automation in Singapore, people think about ASRS. However, I guess there are certain areas which will give you higher benefits or higher returns in terms of automation in areas such as picking, in areas such as order consolidation and sortation. These are the areas largely still manual. Of course, there are other 3PLs or other companies that have started automating these areas as well. But I guess for picking itself is one of the most labor-intensive process, especially if you are doing piece picking in terms of e-commerce. There'll be a lot of walking, a lot of searching involved, and this will be the low-lying fruits that will give very high returns. Start to automate these processes. For order consolidation and exportation is one of the areas that should be looked into together with picking. And right now, with the prices of HGV and AMR price coming down, transportation itself is one area that perhaps we could revisit. In the past, the cost of investment on these areas are pretty high, but over the last years, the prices has become more affordable. And so these are the areas that I guess should be looked into. On areas of packing, unloading, there are technologies, because of the varieties of goods, variety of packaging, like what Alan says, it may be better sometimes to keep the packaging to manual processes, maybe.
Okay. So, thank you, Sean. Kevin, I know you've been in this sector, this industry for a very long time. Are there some new technologies you're looking at to deploy in your facilities? Perhaps around digitalization, even augmented reality. People talk about for the warehouse, potentially. So, anything that you're looking at in your facility, for your facility?
Yeah, I think one of the key areas that we even in my previous company we were looking at and we did execute, and currently with this company we are also looking at is trying to use a centralized system with AI. Yeah. So we each DC or even a very big multinational companies, they have multiple systems. Right, you talk about ERPs, you talk about demand planning systems, then you have your WMS systems, and in the future, if you have robotics, then you have that system by itself. So all these need to talk to each other, right? So how do we integrate a supply chain system which can execute with AI? So that's one of the things that key factors that we look at, because if you look at the whole processes, the end-to-end process, right? All the way from planning, forecasting, all the way up to your routing and scheduling the deliveries to your customers. There is a lot of planning to be done. There's a lot of back and forth, human interaction, going for information with different parties, 3PLs, that kind of thing. So if you use AI in a central system, so basically what it does is, you pull out all the info, or the AI actually gathers all this information, at a faster rate from full-time employees. At the end of the day, if you look at it, the execution from you'll be much faster. You save a lot of time. You save a lot of errors. You save, maybe somebody missed out the email. You save all the kind of process, the kind of thing. So if you look at it holistically, yes, there is going to be robotics, or maybe some kind of automation, physical automation, and also a system automation. When you put these two together, it makes the solution a little bit more holistic, in my opinion, rather than you just focus on, okay, I'm going to just automate my software, or I'm just going to do physical automation. I think it has to be a more holistic solution to this.
All right. Okay. Alan, on this question, because I see you mentioned drones in your presentation. Do you see something that's going to be see widespread applicability in the warehouse or DC?
Yeah. So I would say one of the areas that actually created a bit of it was always manual, was like maybe cycle counting, right? And the inventory management. So maybe that part is in an area that we can automate. I would say from the focus on automation, it's always majority has been under the picking. There's a lot of automation and innovation has been developed for the picking side of the warehouse, and what has been still manual is about the put away and about unloading and reseating of the system. So like something like the RoRos, for example, something using, for example, like the Boston Dynamics robots that they can loose load the containers, are the one that we can look into. However, from the process point of view, we also need to look into what has remained manual and what likely to stay manual unless something being done from upstream point of view. I would say at the moment, the heavy and bulky products, the processes within the warehouse that remains mostly manual. In the warehouse that you're operating TVs or mattresses or fridges or the white good products. So unless there is something being done, some repackaging is being done at the upstream, so when they come to the warehouse, they are actually in such a form that it can be adopted by some sort of automation. Unless that's done, they're likely to remain manual, because then the amount of the repack and the vast activities that the 3PL needs to do on the warehouse makes the whole justification for automation make it unviable. So I would say for the opportunities, definitely for maybe some big and bulky items, the one that we can put them to the category of some sort of non-sortable type of products, and with more focus on the inbound and the inventory management.
Bob, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I was trying to sort out the echo then. So yeah, so as Joe Lombardo, our MC, said right at the beginning of the session, we do encourage our audience to post some questions or even comments for our panelists. So we have the first question here from Sanjay Desai from Humana International, and he's asking, in the future, what are the likely chances of most storage warehouses, becoming extinct and being fully converted to fulfillment centers using predictive demand and 3D printing and AGVs to add value? What do you think are the chances of that that transition happening? Anyone would like to answer that question? Anyone like to answer?
Yeah, well, I can raise my hand, Bob. I would say, again, it's very industry driven, right? For something like spare parts, where you don't have for example, the manufacturing in one country, and you need to bring the supply chain. For some parts, maybe, but I don't think that we are still that much advanced that we go with like a 3D printing and just print a hood for your car, right? As per the demand. So again, maybe for groceries or for the food industry, that also is a bit out of the reach. But for some of the like a small consumer products, or for example for apparel, maybe. So I would say, but we need to look at it from the industry type point of view. It's not a prescription that we can do it for all the industries. For some, yes. It may in future they may go into like what we call them smart logistics. So less inventory holding and more throughput. But still the regulations, spare parts, for example, in technology, these type of things, you need to at least keep some level of inventory. So until then, yeah, I would say still it's a bit of a long way to go.
Right. Okay.
Hi, Bob.
Yeah.
Can I say something for that?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, I think the question talking about like what's the chance of a warehouse, pure storage being extinct, right? And I think that have been for logistics, that have been the wish, the hope people would like to do. So I see one warehouse that they do like zero storage, zero inventory. So every time they come in, cross stock, everything go out. So it's more like a fully fulfillment center to fulfillment. So I think this is not about just the automation that can help. The key thing is why we have inventory, why we need storage, is because what do you call it, the time that it takes for us to order. So you don't trust your supplier. If you trust your supplier, once I place the order, you come within an hour, I will receive it, and then you tell your downstream, okay, your buyers, your consumer, that once you receive your order, I can deliver in 4 hours, and you believe that you can do everything, all the picking, sorting, and then go out, include transportation, get to the hand of the stores within 4 hours. Then you don't need inventory. So the key thing is about the system-wise for supply chain to match the upstream and downstream. But whether you have the automation, I don't understand the 3D printing part for that question, but the AGV or whatever things, predictive demand, I think that matched to what I said. You predict how much came in, boom, or you place the order, you get it. So this is about information system more than the automation, I would say.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I would guess that the technology that we're hearing most about in the last couple of years, and it's a sexy new thing in warehouse DC technology, is AMR, autonomous mobile robots, and these promise a higher level of flexibility and I think also scalability over traditional automation solutions, but they may be less productive. So what should operators really think about when they're perhaps considering deployment of new AMR technology? They're thinking about potential application areas, or whether they were given adequate return on investment. Is it appropriate for their facility? Can I ask Sean from SSI Schaefer your thoughts on AMRs?
Oh, AMRs. I think over the last 2 years, it has been a hot topic on AMRs. I guess when we look into AMRs, we are differentiating between the traditional automation systems, the boat down systems, the conveying systems, and the ASRS. That sort against the AMR system. I guess before one implements the AMR system, they need to look at what they are looking for. Are they looking for storage solutions, or are they looking for picking solutions? What kind of speed are they looking for? The AMR is developed. I will look at the AMR more on a picking solution rather than a storage solution. Why do I say that? AMR solutions usually are kept within a storage height of a human height, within 2 meters to 2.4 meter max. In a standard DC warehouse that we have, we usually have a ceiling height about 8 meters, and the AMR will not be able to optimize the storage requirement, but it is really very flexible. So if you have a warehouse that is of a short height, maybe you have an old warehouse in Hong Kong, they have a lot of short warehouses, it may be suitable. But then you need to look into whether are you looking for storage or are you looking for picking. The second thing you may want to consider before you deploy an AMR system is the speed. The AMR system, the advantage is the flexibility that it gives you. You can deploy 2 machines and you can scale up slowly. It's easy for you to redeploy it as well. But the flexibility comes with a compromise on the speed as well. So the company should be looking into what kind of speed, what kind of throughput they requires. Is AMR able to fulfill it? Just by adding number of robots may not eventually solve the problem. You come to a tipping point where robots start to block one another. So these are something that you need to look into. But of course, there are other things that you may want to consider is the implementation time that you have. It does give you a very, very short implementation time. It is great in that sense. In terms of relocation, if you have planned for relocation expansion, I guess that has to be considered as well. That will be a plus point for AMR solutions. So I think, in a nutshell, I would, like I said, I will look at AMR solutions more of a picking solution, and I will see that it will be good if you could complement the AMR solution with a traditional ASRS or shutter systems, where it will serve as a picking media, where it will be fed by a traditional fixed down solution, and I guess that would be a good combination.
Right. Okay, thank you very much, Sean, for that perspective from your company. Kevin from Dairy Farm, is AMR a technology that you've been looking at all, either in your current role or perhaps in your previous one?
Yeah, I think AMR is something that not only in dairy farm, but I think if you look at those warehouses or DC operations, which have a very large picking operation, and also what we call a cross-dock operation or flow-through operations, AMR will be one technology that will actually help and collaborate with humans rather than just relying solely on machines. I think if you look at the way to move forward, if you look at how it is done currently, where the traditional method or using the traditional MHEs, you have to move the pallet or move the goods from one staging point to another staging point. Now, if your warehouse is about 70,000 square meters, it's just a length of period of time, a peak happens. But if you're using EMR, one of the things that you look at is, of course, how you use that technology to work with the human, instead of, you going up the MHE, coming down the MHE, which, takes about a minute or two getting up and down. The robot will just follow you and it carries the pallet along with you, the kind of thing. So, and these AMRs are actually much smaller, and I think they are very, very flexible to be used in a very constrained warehouse, especially if you look at Singapore, where warehouse space is, is something like a high-end commodity, if you look at in terms of dollars and cents, and you look at the affordability of AMR is much cheaper than a AGV, so AGV are big, so basically you use that to put pallets away, or when you unstuff containers, you move from point A to point B. But AMRs are more flexible, and they are very, very affordable, and they are also like it's easy to program them, and they are not a threat to somebody's job. So that's the important thing here. So because when you talk about robots to the rank and file or the ground crew, everybody would think, oh, you implement robot, I'm going to lose my job. But in reality, if you explain the technology to them, to them is a benefit to them, so it helps them to drive up their productivity and also the warehouse throughput.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Kavi. Alan, AMR was something you mentioned in your presentation.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the appropriate deployment of this new technology?
Yep, it's actually interesting because I was working about the last 1.5 years just implementing our AMR solution within the within our operations. So some of the main lessons learned that we have, and I think it's going to be a good one for everyone who wants to go through this AMR. We need to make sure that we are deploying this type of solution, this type of robotic solutions for the right profile of the products. So when you're having I would say a large SKU proliferation, you have a large SKU base, small order sizes, this going to be like a good solution for you. However, one of the downside of the AMR is they are actually good for a low roof warehouse, because unless you have already a mezzanine in place, you're going to have a lot of waste air on top. So for the situation, like for example in Japan, where you have like multi-level warehouses, or maybe in Singapore that they have mezzanine, they could be very handy, because you will be using the cube of the building as part of your picking solution. Again, I think Sean just brought a very good point. As I said, like the AMR, we should not look at this type of automation as a storage solution. They are for picking, and because and given that they will be some sort of a two-touch, you still need to replenish the system. The common standard is just to put between 5 to 7 days of orders within those systems to be able to pick from it. Given that it adds an extra touch to the products for order picking, because in a normal order picking, you're going to pick, you replenish into your pick faces, you go and just pick one. But then for here, you need to go and just pick it from the reserve, do another touch, replenish the AMR, and just pick from it. But that's amount of replenishment you need to also consider when you're designing. The other very important point is what sort of SKUs you want to put it in there, right? So, apart from the golden zones, and just make sure that the product is being properly spread into the different heights of every pot or the shelves within the AMR. AMR is not good for super fast mover products. If something that, for example, turns more than, for example, 2 or 3 pallets a day, that's not good to put in AMR, because you will be more efficient to put some 2 pallets and just pick from it. Otherwise, you will kill the robots just moving the same SKU around in different locations. So understanding, because they're good for slow movers, like the one that we're going to remove reduce the travel distance, the B and C movers, for example. These are AMR is good for this profile. So understanding the profile, so we know you apply this solution for what type of profile, what type of volumes, what type of SKUs is the main determinators, just to make sure that you're getting the right productivity. And it is also very good to combine it with the manual solution. So you pick your A movers out of like the normal racking or the reserve system, or like pick this on the ground, and then you have some sort of an order consolidation.
All right, I think that's a very good answer, Alan, because there is so much talk and perhaps hype about AMRs happening right now. So I think the message that you said, and I think has come through this session, is really about appropriate automation. That we all know that automation can help in many different processes and applications, but it has to be appropriate and it has to make sense, both in terms of financial investment and also given the context of your human operators as well. I'm getting the signal actually that we need to bring this session to a close, and I think that the time's gone pretty quickly, and we managed to get through, well, not all of the questions, but I think most of the questions that we planned for. So on this topic of opportunities for automation, warehousing and distribution centers, I really want to thank our 4 panelists today. And you heard from Alan Mackey, who is MD Solution Design and Implementation at Siva Logistics, Jonathan Kwok, General Manager at Honeywell Logistics Solutions, Kevin D'Souza, Head of Logistics at Dairy Farm, and Sean Lim. And Sean is Country Manager SSI Schaefer here in Singapore. So again, thanks to all of you for moving the discussion along. And I guess I need to hand back to Joe now. Joe Lombardo.
That's great. Thanks very much, Bob. Appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for a very interesting discussion. We could go on for a lot more time that we have. Again, much appreciated. Take care and best wishes to all of you. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.